Poetry is what gets lost in the translation. With this beautiful line, I welcome you all in this video for class 10th English. Today we are with the poem, and the poem name is Dust of Snow by Robert Frost. Let's know about this. Okay. Introduction to the poem, and the poem introduction is: the poem Dust of Snow by Robert Frost is a simple and short poem with a deeper and larger meaning. Okay, this is a very short poem, but if you go in the proper sense of the poem, it is beyond your imagination. It is not just a poem in which you just translate a word to word. Okay, but you should know the background of the word, why this word was introduced by Robert Frost in this poem. The poem tells that even a simple movement has a larger significance. Okay, the small things that comes to us, that comes in our life, has an important impact on our life, because these are the small things that we ignore in our life. We do not enjoy those small things. The poet has mentioned crow and a hemlock tree in this poem, where crow signifies his depressive and sorrowful mood, and hemlock tree is about the poet. Robert Frost was born on March 26, 1874 in San Francisco, California. He was awarded frequently during his lifetime, receiving 4 of his Pulitzer Prizes for his poetry. He became one of America's rare public literary figures, almost an artist institution. He was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his poetic works. Robert Frost was known for his depiction of rural New England life and the poetry about ordinary people in everyday situation. Theme of the poem. Okay, basically we have 3 different themes. Okay, for this poetry, the first is the communication between nature and humans. Okay, that what is the communication between us and the nature. Second is the nature healing and helping with the negative human emotions, because when we are in a very negative mood or our mood goes swing up and downs, the nature heals us with his powers so that we can feel a positivity in our surrounding. And the last one is the significance of a small natural event. The small events that occurs regularly, okay, that is described in this poem. These are the 3 themes, but exactly we don't know that exactly what is the proper theme. Poem. The short poem by Robert Frost throws light upon the unimaginable, which thing? Unimaginable healing power of nature and small things that changes a life. From a bad mood to ill health, there is nothing that cannot be cured by the nature. Okay, for example, the best example is in the corona time. You just see the pollution level before the corona time period, okay, and see the pollution level after the corona in this corona time. It goes reduces itself. It reduces itself. Okay, the poet is set under a hemlock tree, okay, and he is quite upset. He is not happy. Suddenly, a crow shakes the hemlock tree, and the snow falls on the poet. And as the snow touches the poet's body, it changes its mindset. Okay, initially he was sad, but after the snow touches his body, it heals the body and it changes the mood of the poet. And from a sad mood, from upset mood, it becomes it changes to happiness. That means now the poet is in a happy mood. The fact that the hemlock tree is a poisonous combined with a crow, being the indicator of doom and fear, are used in the poem as the carrier of happiness in the life of narrator in ironically. That means they both are the indicator of negative things, but being a negative thing, they bring a happiness to the poet. That is why these two things are important for the poet. Okay, which two things? The first is a crow, and the second is a hemlock tree. Okay, being a poisonous tree, being a, we can say, being a negative side, it brings a positive, because maths equation says that when the two negatives are multiplied, okay, when two negatives are multiplied, it always gives a positive result. Being outdoors in nature with all its unpredictability can benefit anyone, anywhere, at any time. You cannot imagine that when the nature will give you the best thing, okay? It is your time, it is your efforts, it is only you that how they are linked with that particular fact, and you don't know that when the miracle will happens. Okay, this was the complete summary of the chapter. Now, sorry, this was the complete summary of the poem. Now it's time for the explanation. Okay, you will be thinking that a small poem has a bigger explanation, maybe, because these are not the words of a small 3-4 lines. These are a bigger event on each and every word. Okay, so don't go anywhere, stay here so that you can know more and in a very easy manner. Dear students, now it's time for the explanation. We have a two stanzas, okay? So we start with the first stanza. That starts in this stanza. The poet says that the poem is set in a scene where the poet is in a bad mood and is walking by a tree, a hemlock tree. Hemlock tree is a poisonous tree. As he passes by, a crow happens to throw some snow dust on him. Whether it falls on his head or shoulder is unknown, as there is no specific mention in the poem, because the poet do not know whether what was happening there exactly, whether that bird is trying to fix his position to sit, or he is doing some another thing that he is not able to understand. And due to that only, that a small particle of snow that falls from the tree, that which tree? There's the hemlock tree, and falls on the body of a poet. Here the two agents of nature, a hemlock tree and the crow, are signifiers of sadness, and just like the poet's mood was in the opening scene. The explanation of the first stanza. Now the explanation for the second stanza. Stanza's explanation is as follows. For reasons unknown, the author was having a terrible day, but the falling of the snow on his head lifted the mood instantly. When the poet was under the tree, or the person who is described in the poem by the poet, in the poem, that particular person was in a very different mood. Okay, that means he is sad, or he is some sorrow way. So as he go under the tree, and as the snow that touches his body part, and it changes his mind. Okay, because when something is there, if you are a patient of any disease, or you are suffering from fever, okay, and something gradually changes with you, okay, for example, you are alone and surprisingly your best friend visits you, and it really changes your mind. In the same manner, it happened in the poem. He had already spent his half day in a bad mood, but the rest was saved by the crow and the hemlock. Here we already discussed that the crow and the hemlock gives you a negative image of anything. Okay, but as there is a in the mathematics we say that when two negative digits multiply with each other, it will give you in a positive manner. Hemlock tree and crow are used for negative reference, but the poet used them beautifully to portray that unauspicious things can accept whichever way the nature chooses to bless us. Dear students, this was the complete explanation of both the stanzas of the poem. Okay, and now if you have any kind of a doubt, you can raise at my email ID, which is jetu.499@gmail.com, or you can comment in the comment section box. Thank you. Have a nice day. Namaskar.